I have a special guest, Nikki from SpecialT, the amazing app. And she's going to be talking to us or showing us a demo of the app, but also talking to us about record keeping and note keeping as health professionals, what our clinical responsibilities are and how using a cloud-based platform like SpecialT can make your job that much easier, and also just communication with parents. So I'm really excited to bring her on. So what is SpecialT? SpecialT is a therapy app that's been specially crafted by therapists for therapists to enhance the connection between therapists and parents. I'm not going to go into the whole explanation of it because I think Nikki is the best person to talk about the app. There we go. Hi, Nikki. Welcome.
Thanks, Tasneem. It's so lovely to be with you this evening. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
No, you're welcome. Thank you to you. I mean, it's 8 o'clock at night and you're availing yourself. So I really do appreciate it. And I think we've got already, looks like we've already got about 4 people. We've got about 4 people watching. So already. So I'm sure people will start hopping on as they get the notification that we are actually live.
And that's right. Good evening, everyone.
So I think to get started, maybe we can start off with you just first introducing yourself, who you are, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Tasneem. So good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Sturton. I'm an occupational therapist from Ballito, South Africa. And I have a business partner, Jess Rue. She's obviously not with us this evening, but sends her warm regards to everyone. So Jess and I are OTs. We work in pediatrics and we are based in Ballito. We work together with 2 other therapists and our practice is called Clay Occupational Therapy. And in the process of being OTs, we obviously knew the demands and expectations that we had as health professionals to record all our notes in an ethical way. And we knew the demands and expectations, and we experienced the realities of not being able to engage effectively with parents. We also are both parents, we're both moms, we both have children, and we also therefore understand the realities of being parents and possibly not having the time and headspace to spend the extra time trying to understand the children's needs. So from that place of being a therapist and a parent, we saw that there was a great need to create a product where which would promote the therapist recording notes, but also would enhance the parents' experience of therapy and their journey with their child. So that's where where SpecialT started 4 years ago.
So I just want to just put a disclaimer out there because I have been making this joke that because I'm an OT, I'm totally biased towards OTs. And it's starting to look very much in the OT's favor because so far, many of my guests have been OT, aside from Tian, who is like the thorn among the roses. So if anyone who is like a physio or a dietitian or if you have anything that can help other health professionals in private practice that you'd like to talk about, you're welcome to hit me up in the DMs and we can see what I can do so it doesn't look like I'm just like showcasing all the OTs out there. But I think it's fantastic. But there's one thing to have identify this need. And to identify that there's something that needs to happen to make this need, to fulfill this need.
Yeah.
But to actually go out and do it is a whole other story. So first of all, how did you come up with the idea of an app? And secondly, I think I'm so used to hearing from health professionals oh, I hate technology. It's not really for me. I don't know how to do it. Like, and that's only for social media. Yeah, you guys have decided to create a whole entire app. So, so what was that process like of thinking this is what the solution needs to be? And then secondly, actually taking that leap to go and do something which might have, I'm sure it must have seemed like a mammoth task at the
Yeah.
time. So yeah.
So it really was. And initially, we didn't think of doing something ourselves. We just were on the hunt for something that would help us. So it wasn't like we woke up one day and said, we want to change direction, we want to be app developers. We just were so desperate to find something to help ourselves in our practice. And in the process of the desperation, we obviously looked on the internet and searched for different solutions and tried to find different ways. But everything that we found was just like a generic record keeping platform. It was nothing specific to any profession, actually, not just OT. There was nothing specific. So, there were options where you can just record your notes for yourself, but then there was still that need to go and communicate with the parents. And then, there was one or two platforms where you could send a little picture of an exercise. But again, that was the only option. So that's when we kind of sat together and started brainstorming that we needed a solution that focused on all the areas, and we call them our 3 pillars at this stage. So the 3 pillars are record keeping. There's the next one is communicating with parents and caregivers. And then the third one is the videos and access to resources. So we got lots of advice along the way, and we were like, okay, we need a solution that can service those 3 pillars. So that's when we decided that we would start something on our own. And just so everyone knows, we're not tech gurus. When I started, I didn't know the difference. I didn't really know what a browser was. I didn't know that you get Safari and Chrome and Firefox, and I didn't know how to clear my browsing history. I didn't know what Android was or iOS. So we knew nothing. And so it's been a real learning journey for the last 4 years. But we've really loved it. I've loved networking with OTs. There are amazing OTs in our country, and I've loved getting to know them. I feel like my perspective has grown so much as a therapist because I've got to go to different practices and meet therapists and look at their therapy rooms and see the amazing work that they're doing. And it's really been inspiring because there are amazing OTs. And the one thing I've noticed is that all OTs will work so hard, and they'll almost work for free, and they'll never charge what they should charge, and they will do their best for their patients and the parents, and they work so hard, and they're all so passionate to give the best service. So it's really inspiring. So it's been a great journey. We've learned lots. We started 4 years ago. We first started within our own practice, piloting it. So it took almost 9 months to just build to the point where we could pilot it. We then piloted for a full year in our own practice, and our parents were very gracious in being the testing parents, where we would build something and then rebuild and start again. And then we launched 2 years ago. It was May 2 years ago that we launched. And then, there was so much interest from other professions that we've launched now into speech therapy. And
I saw that, yes.
And we're busy. We've got a play therapy panel and an OT general panel that are busy working hard at deciding on which categories and videos we would need for those different professions. We plan to also go into physiotherapy quite soon. So, we're really excited at the opportunity in growing into the other professions, not only for those professions, but for the communication that can happen between each profession.
Absolutely.
Around one child's progress.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned about not being tech savvy at all when you embarked on this, because this there's this saying, I think it's Albert Einstein that said, if you think you can or you can't, you are right. And I keep saying, like, people keep saying, I'm not really good with technology and that, but it's because your fear is holding you back from trying.
Yeah,
So either you need to actually just get stuck there and get in there and do it. And if it's a case of where you're lacking capability, you either need to go and learn or you need to outsource. So in your situation, of course, you now outsource the actual building of the app, but it was more the design around the user interface, and the user experience was around what you required as users of the end product. So I think it's great. So kudos to you guys for actually like taking the plunge. But then the other thing I wanted to chat about also is that I think I'm sure there must have been a lot of trepidation around because it's not cheap to develop something like this. So you kind of have to take a leap of faith that obviously you're not going to invest all this money into creating something that's just for you. There
yeah,
had to be some kind of a return on investment that it has,
yeah,
and you had to obviously, even though you believed it's going to benefit the whole community of our professionals or
yeah.
OTs, if that was initially your intention, there's never that. I'm sure there must have been that fear of uncertainty of whether it will be adopted or whether you'll be able to sell the idea. So, talk to me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So, luckily, Jess and I have amazing husbands that have really supported us and backed us. Yeah, so we first of all are so grateful to them for giving us the opportunity. I think any therapist's husbands are amazing because they always feed us during the months that we can't bring an income, especially now during COVID. But yeah, our husbands were amazing, and they backed our vision and dream for SpecialT. We did initially, when we started, we decided that we would just create like a minimal viable product to see if there's a need and to see if there's interest. And as we produced that product and started exposing it to other therapists, we saw the interest. So that's when we decided to like slowly trickle in more capital to make it better. And for anyone that has been using SpecialT from 2 years ago, I'm sure you will agree that we've added a lot of features and we keep making it better. So every month we put money, whatever comes into the business, we put back in because we're so passionate about making it a better product. And then obviously, as you make it better and add new features, you get so many suggestions. So there've been so many people that have said, please add this, please add that. And we so often reply saying, don't worry, it's on the list, we will add it. So that list is huge, and we often have to justify to our husbands why we need to add the new feature. And we try and show them that there's interest from people and show them that there's this need. I think what we've realized now is that therapists we need to save them time. All of us are so busy, and a therapist barely have time to answer their phones. They're so busy because they're always in therapy. They can never answer their phone. So this lockdown opportunity was great because people now have time to go on and to try it and to phone us and to answer our calls. So we've realized that therapists don't have time. So what our aim is to create time for therapists so that they can either spend more time with their families or they can spend more time earning an income. So a lot of us waste time where we're writing our own notes, then we're writing the patient's notes, and we're duplicating everything that we're doing. We're writing notes, and then we're spending hours on report writing. I hate report writing. It's the worst part of my job.
I think most people hate report writing.
Yeah, I'll avoid report writing, and I'll even get a new referral, and the first thing that comes to my head is, I don't want to write this report. And it's really, I think we actually recently did a survey, and I'm so glad to know I'm not the only one, because most therapists replied in the survey saying that report writing is the worst part of their jobs. And it takes, on average, I think it was 2 to 5 hours or 2 to 4 hours for therapists to write a report, which obviously eats into their time with their family or being in therapy. And then also invoicing. Obviously, most therapists write their notes and then they have a separate invoicing solution. So, we really want to try and integrate all these things into SpecialT so that when therapists do anything, it does everything for them and
more streamlined.
Yeah, so one-stop shop to provide all the.
But so I wanted to speak about something you mentioned about minimum viable product. But before I speak about that, another thing around the report writing, I attended the InStop billing and coding for pediatric therapists webinar, and they were talking about it's not only the time with the families, but as a private practice owner, you're a business. And report writing is actually like the money loser in your practice. It's like that. Like they say in Pick and Pay can sell their things at a loss because they make the money on the bigger things. But report writing is like our item that we make a loss on. because so the longer it takes and the more inefficient you are, actually you're losing money in your business because you're not actually getting through it in an effective way. So there's also, from a business point of view, having an efficient way to write reports and things is so important.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, a lot of people charge like 450 Rand for a report. And that's a lot of kind of a gauge on people's prices for therapy. That's like a 45-minute session. So if it's taking you 5 to 6 hours or even 5 hours to write a report, you're losing like 2,000 Rand on just writing that report. So I think that's why a lot of us really don't enjoy it, because we know it takes us so much time to do it properly. And then the big frustration with it is that so often the parents don't sit and read the 6 pages. They will scroll straight to the back and read the summary, and that's it. And we've spent so much time thinking about the child and making sure that everything's understood. And then the end result is that the parents might not even read the whole thing. So I think that's a big frustration. So a part of our plans for SpecialT is to create a really an easy way to document your results that can still be specific. So not just generic, but making them available to make specific notes, but then also having a more of a visual graph representation on the results, so that the parent can almost have like choose a one-pager where there's a graph and it's easy for them to see the average and where their child is. And then when you do a reassessment, to see the progress the child has made from therapy. So those are some exciting plans that we have up our sleeves.
That sounds amazing. So I just wanted to touch on, you mentioned the word minimum viable product, and then it was like, in the animated movies, then they have like the angel goes, oh. That is kind of what happened to me when I heard you say minimum viable product. Let me tell you why, because I am a terrible perfectionist when it comes to anything that I'm passionate about. So like in my digital marketing business, I didn't know minimum viable product, because it was like, no, I can't launch my website until it's perfect and it has every page. And, that is how I was. And I slowly started to learn. I still have to like consciously check myself all the time that you need to strive to have a minimal viable product and then improve on it. You need to iterate, because nothing is ever going to be perfect. And actually, the way you're going to get it closer to perfection is through feedback from the users. So the idea of getting a minimal viable product out is that you think you know what people want, but actually you sometimes are so wrong. So by having that MVP, you then have the opportunity to get the early adopters, and early adopters are wonderful people, because they will come in there and make the suggestions, and they tend to be very loyal. So you get this great feedback because they're using it, and they can say, oh, this doesn't work, and can you do this? Like you're saying, all these suggestions. And over time, look at Apple. I mean, they were like the shittiest product out there when they first launched. Everybody thought Steve Jobs was insane and out of his mind because his product didn't really match up to Microsoft. And now, I mean, it's like it speaks for itself. So I'm very glad you mentioned that, because I think in private practice as well, this is something that I am trying to get health professionals to think when they are starting their practice. They have this habit of wanting to have the perfect rooms that's equipped with every assessment under the sun, and it must look really like Pinterest therapy rooms, and and it costs so much time and money to get off the ground, instead of just having the basics of what you need, getting some clients through the door, building up your reputation, and as you go along, reinvesting, as you say, any profits you make in your practice, reinvesting it back into your practice, and eventually you will have that beautiful Pinterest therapy room. So I think people can also learn from your experience with your app, translate that into their actual physical practices as well. So thanks for mentioning that.
And I think, just to encourage therapists that you need to hold on to what's your important, and what's your main goal and your main focus. And, I think as a therapist, it must always be to better yourself as a therapist, not your rule. And I think we can so get caught up in that. I know when I started my practice 10 years ago, I wanted everything there and then. And then I also actually started a special needs school 9 years ago, or 8 years ago. And when I started, I had this full vision of what I wanted it to be. And I'm not really a perfectionist, but I'm a doer, and I like getting things done, and I like ticking the boxes. And so, I think as a person like that, you can burn out quite easily because you just want everything done quickly. But I think I've learned through Bloom and through Clay and now with SpecialT that it's really important to really keep the main thing and do the best at that. And then as you grow and get suggestions from people and get input, you'll get it to where it needs to be. You've just got to give yourself and the process time. So I think it's a good learning lesson for us all.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that. So we're going to go into the next part now of talking about record keeping and clinical notes in therapy. But I just wanted to mention to whoever's watching, there's about 10 people watching at the moment. If you do have any questions for Nikki around the app, we are going to end off with a demo where she's going to do a run through of how the app works and all of those things. But if you do have any questions, just pop it in the comments, and at the end, I will just go through them and we can answer them for you. So to go into the next session, I think, it's related as well to when you develop the app. I'm sure there must have been a lot of conversation and brainstorming around the ethical requirements. So besides the Health Professional Council's ethical rules on record keeping, there's also, the privacy, confidentiality, the POPI Act, all of those things. What were some of the challenges or concerns you had, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think it was actually a really good learning curve, because as a health professional, I wasn't really aware of all our expectations as therapists until we went down this road. I think we overlook that, and we kind of look at the other stuff, and we don't realize the importance of note keeping. So I'm actually really grateful that I did this journey just so that I could understand more as a therapist. And I would really quickly slip over notes and not spend enough time on my notes, sometimes forgetting to write notes, or drawing a few little pictures, and then rushing out the door, and then coming back the next week and forgetting that, looking at my notes and remembering that I hadn't finished them, but then I couldn't remember them. And so I think those are all real realities for therapists. And that's why we want to make SpecialT relevant, because we all are busy, and most of us are moms. So we're working, and then we're rushing to fetch kids, and then we're going home, and then, there's the reality of being a therapist. But then there's the importance of note taking. So I think our desire for SpecialT is to make it so easy for a therapist to record notes so that wherever you are, you can do those notes and you can follow up with them and finish them and do them properly. So that's been a really awesome thing for me to learn and grow in. I feel like I'm recording notes a lot more professionally. I feel like my kind of understanding of where I'm going with my therapy child is a little bit more clear because I'm really recording notes properly each week, and I've got a nice goal and forward vision of where I'm going with the child. So from that side, I think it's great. It's a good discipline, and it's good for us as therapists. And then obviously, in the process, we read all the laws and expectations. I actually thought that you only had to keep notes for 5 years. But then obviously in the process of reading all the documents and all the HPCSA guidelines, it says that you have to keep notes until a child is 21 years old. So if you start with a patient that's younger than 18, you need to keep the notes for 3 years past 18. So you've got to keep the notes until a child is 21. And it's been interesting as I've told therapists that a lot of them were unaware of those rules and guidelines. So I think that's been a real good learning lesson. And I really love empowering other therapists and letting them know those guidelines so that they're aware of them as well, because we need to protect ourselves. I think often therapists are kind, sweet, caring people, and they don't think anyone's ever going to come back at them or ask to see the notes, and you kind of think everything will go well. But I've had heard a few interesting stories where therapists really had to prove their notes and their therapy and were then caught off guard. So I think it's been a good learning lesson for us.
But I think there's also the element of there's the thing of people are either avoiding loss or chasing gain, right? So you mentioning now the avoidance of bad things happening so that you can protect yourself, but on the flip side, there's also giving your clients a good customer experience. So I think that for me as a parent, like now, especially in lockdown, when my kids are, like my daughter, she's in grade 5 now, and she's doing the MS Teams thing and whatever. And she's a child that needs, like, she struggles with a lot of her subjects. So I feel completely lost, like I don't know, because I don't have that contact with the teacher and the work, and I feel completely lost. I don't know how she's doing because there's no tests now and all of that. So I think also just the positive experience from the parent point of view of having this ability to constantly be able to check in on and knowing exactly what your child is doing. All OTs know that the worst question somebody can ask you is, what is OT? Because it's so difficult to answer. And I think part of that is because that bridge, there wasn't that bridge in communication of really clearly explaining what it is, so that the parent knows that you're not just playing with the child for the sake of playing with the child. There's actually these goals, there's reasons why you're doing certain activities. And I think having that kind of communication where they can do it on their own time probably does that. So it puts the profession also in good stead, and it also builds on your reputation. So from the point of view of building your practice, reputation is going to take you really far in terms of building your client base. So I think, it's those two sides of the same coin,
And I think it's also important to know, to stop and realize that the parents are paying a lot of money in private practice to come for therapy. I've got 3 kids, and 2 of them have needed OT and speech and psychology, and I've spent a lot of money on therapy. And I think now that I'm offering a really good service where I'm really empowering the parents and giving them knowledge and giving them input, when I've gone to another therapist that hasn't given me that input and feedback, and when I've gone home and I've been like, I don't really know how to do this, I don't know how to say this, or when one of my kids went to psychology, and I came home feeling like I actually don't know what to do, because he was in the session, I wasn't. how do I now know how to carry over the principles that I need to carry over? And, it felt, as a parent, I felt like, sure, I've paid a lot of money and I don't know how I'm actually helping my child right now. So I've become quite passionate from that side of things, because as therapists, we need to give the best, and the best the best can be in therapy, but and we can do really great at therapy. But if we're not doing anything in carryover and empowering the parents and getting the parents on board, it's a reflection on our therapy and on the child's progress. So I feel very strongly that all therapists should communicate better with parents, because that's vital. Once a week for 45 minutes is not enough. And the parent training, I've even seen during lockdown with being a bit more connected to the parents, the parent training is vital. So that's our hope for SpecialT, is that the parents wouldn't walk away feeling disempowered or not feeling a part of the journey, but the parents would easily understand what's going on, feel empowered, and feel connected, so that they can actually help their child. Because I mean, we all know that once a week is just not enough. So the parents need to feel empowered and feel connected. So I think it's actually it's a necessity for therapists to do it right. And I must say, being a parent, I've experienced when it isn't done right.
So before we carry on, there's a few, not so much questions, but comments, which I think I just want to go through. I think when you were talking about like not writing notes and like forgetting what you wrote, Nasreen said, no, not Nasreen, who was it that said that? Let me just check quickly. Yes, Nasreen said definitely relate to that. I think lots of people can relate to that. And then Hannah, oh, hi, Hannah. So Hannah's in the Private Practice Growth Academy, and she says, not a question, just a comment. I've only been using SpecialT for a few weeks now, and it is a game changer. Can't imagine life without it. And these two women are so helpful and supportive. No matter how technologically challenged you are, they will literally walk you through everything, and it's so intuitive. You get the hang of it super quickly. So that's fantastic to know. Thank you so much for that feedback, and I'm sure Nikki really appreciates it. And then Nasreen also says, yes, when we were talking about, having the notes, she was saying it's important for audits too. Now, I know Nasreen is, she knows about ethics and all of this stuff. So this is also a topic that she's very passionate about, around being ethical in your practice. And then Fatima says, super excited to be trialing SpecialT as a speech therapist. So that's exciting. I think there's a lot of speech therapists who have been asking for this as well for a long time. And then Hannah says, asking for someone who won't be able to make it tonight, will the recording be made available? Yes, so with all these lives, the Facebook Live it will stay on the Facebook page for 48 hours. And in that time, I edit it. And once it goes up onto the YouTube channel, so I'll make it all, like cut out all of the fluff and make it nice, put it on YouTube, and then I'll remove it from Facebook, but then I'll put the link in the group so anybody can watch it. It will be publicly available to share and all of that stuff. Okay, great. So let's continue. So are there any specific things so you already mentioned something you didn't know about the record keeping. I also didn't know that it's supposed to be till past 21. So that was something I didn't know either. But anything else that especially you've been in practice for 10 years, like you say you're now involved in this project. So is there anything, there's a lot of new therapists, new private practice therapists here in this group, people are thinking of starting or just started. Is there anything that you want to specifically give advice about around documentation and record keeping, mistakes you've made or new things you've learned that you really want, when people go into private practice, that they need to really be cognizant about?
Yeah. Well, some really practical tip that I could give that I wish I knew when I started my practice was I used to store all my notes in the year that the patient came to me. So I think I started in 2000 and I think it was 2012 that I started my practice. And what I did was I would then write 2012, and I stored all the notes that I kept in 2012. And that kept going on for a few years. And then when Jess then came in locum for me, and we formed a partnership and started Clay OT. All of a sudden I stopped and realized, okay, I need to store away a lot of these files. They're taking up too much cupboard space. We're buying new toys. And I realized I needed to move them into my garage at home. My husband was not happy with me. He was like, this is ridiculous. Why have you been doing this? Why weren't you scanning it? I'm like, I barely got time to write the notes, never mind scan them. So then what I did was I then just kept them in those files that had the years. But then obviously, as maybe a child comes back to therapy, or you've got to pull out those notes, I saved them under the year that the child came, not the child's date of birth.
My word.
So now when I need to get rid of these notes, which isn't soon yet, well, it might be, I'm not too sure, I haven't worked out all out. So I could have had a child that was 1, and I could have had a child that was 10. But now they're all saved under that year. So for me to now go and find that child, because I can't remember a year ago which child was with me. So to find the year that the child started therapy, or to find the child's notes, is nearly impossible. And so when I can throw away the notes when they're 21, I'm not even going to be able to find who's 21. If anything, just remember to save the notes under the child's date of birth, and not the year that you did the therapy. And yeah, obviously now I'm so happy with SpecialT, because what I do is all my notes are online. I haven't scanned in my DTVP scores and all of those booklets, which you can do if you had a little bit more time. I think if I had a PA, she would be doing that for me. But I've stored all my reports and all my therapy notes and everything on SpecialT. And now I can just go to archive patients and find the name, and the child's name is there and all their notes. So it's a lot easier now. So I've said to my husband, he must just have a little bit of grace for the next 10 years, and then all of those can be gone. And from then, from 4 years ago, everything's online. So it's easy to find, and it's not taking up space in our garage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So then also with regards to the keeping of the notes, so what are some of the considerations in terms of from an ethics point of view, from the Health Professions Council guidelines, in terms of storing of confidential information and all of that? What are some of the things that you need to think about in terms of keeping all of these things?
Yeah, so obviously, all the child's details, their parent details, their contract, all of that is really, really important. Having all your contracts signed and dated, that's really all very important. Having original files kept, so like original reports. So if you've done the DTVP and you've got the child's drawing, either keeping those originals or scanning the originals and keeping them in case you ever need to access them. That's really important. And then last year, they added a new rule saying that you need to record the time of the session, the start time and the finish time. So that's also a new rule to be aware of. I only used to keep I only used to write the date of the session. But yeah, we learned about when we heard that we needed to keep the time, we added that feature to the app so that when you go on, it saves the time, or you can change the time. At this point, we haven't done the time finished, but it's something that we're going to add soon. So it's important to show the time that you've started and finished. And then also medical notes cannot be erased or removed. So obviously when you're writing on a piece of paper, the expectation is to draw a line and a ruler through what you've written and then sign so that you can still read what you wrote. Cannot completely erase that note. But then obviously when it's a tech digital thing, it's really hard. So because obviously if you want to go back and edit something, it's not easy to edit because then how do you prove when you wrote it? And, you know, we've got to be really careful there. So what we've done with SpecialT is that when you click send, you can't edit the notes again. And that's and then those notes are dated and timed. But if you have made a mistake or if you want to add something to your notes, you can write an additional comment and that will be dated and timed. So it will say, I can say, according to above, the score for this was actually 5, not 4. And then that will be dated and timed when I put in my new edit. But obviously, we just have to be careful around the fact that you can't erase anything. So that's an important thing to remember, that medical notes cannot be erased or removed. Something I wasn't aware of initially.
Which I think, I mean, yeah, because that is standard health profession council guidelines. And I think having this a method of note keeping that kind of forces you to be a bit more accountable is a good thing. It can only be a good thing. It might not feel like it because it's like, oh darn, I like maybe like, you know, made a spelling mistake or whatever. But it's I think with practice, you then, if you are forced to behave in a certain way, then over time you might even become more efficient in your writing, more careful, more mindful, more accountable, because now you know that it's, you know, it's there. And that's as it should be. Medical records you should be able to see what changes have been made. So that's great. So I just wanted to, Nasreen says here, I was referred a child who was being treated for approximately 2 years, and the therapist did not keep any record at all. Oh my word. Oh gosh. Anyway, but somebody asked, but she also asked a very valid question. I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you answer it. Can you lose any info if the app crashes?
Awesome. So what we've done is all different information on the app is saved on different servers. So the photos are saved in one place, the comments are saved in another place, and your notes are saved on another server. And that just is quite good to save them in different places, and they're encrypted and they're safe and secure, and they're kind of separate so that they can be safe from any hackers or anyone like that. And then, so at least we save it on different servers in case of any type of server crash. And then we also back up everything every 24 hours. So if one of the servers ever crashes, then whatever was done the day before is backed up, and that can be redeployed onto the app. But I mean, we've been working on it for 4 years and we've never lost anything. So no major crash has ever happened. So it does give us a peace of mind.
Well, I think what's important to understand is that, using an app, it's not like the data is stored on the hard piece of hardware. It's in the cloud. And that is really a big benefit, because if you think about it, if you have all your notes on paper and the office burns down, or there's a tornado, or whatever, these things happen, or I don't know, there's a flood, those things are gone forever. Same thing of, I had a friend who foolishly, he was almost done with his thesis, and then he got hijacked. And the computer was obviously stolen, but he didn't save it to the cloud or make a backup or anything. So his entire thesis was gone. So this is different in the sense that, you need to, in any case, be anything that's on your computer, save it to Google Drive or to Dropbox or something like that, because it's out there in the clouds. And I can promise you there is this thing called the Wayback Machine. I'm going to blow your minds now. There is this thing, the website, if you go and Google Wayback Machine, there's this website where you can go and you can actually go back in time and see what a website looked like 10 years ago or whatever years ago. Even though that website doesn't exist anymore in that current state, nothing can be removed from the internet for good. Once it's out there, it's somewhere there. So I think that's the good thing about it being cloud-based, is that your phone can get stolen, lost, whatever, but your data will still be somewhere, and the fact that you
Yeah.
guys are backing it up and all of that, it's a lot more safe than if you had to keep it in your files in a cabinet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And something,
Um,
that we do with SpecialT is that we say to people that you will always have access to your therapy notes. So if you stop working because of COVID, or you retire, or you go on maternity leave for 3 years, you can always access your notes at any time, and so can your parents. So just the other day, a parent contacted me that's now living in England, and she said she's so happy to go onto SpecialT and see all her child's notes and all the information there. And yeah, so it's really nice that your parents will always have access to everything, and so will you as a therapist. You don't have to download it at the end. You can just go on and find it all whenever you want.
and I've seen that was a question that's often asked, like when you post about it in the Facebook groups. What happens
Yeah.
if I stop my trial? Like say I can't afford it now, so I'm going to stop my trial, or like, yeah, do I lose all my information? So maybe you can just speak to that as well.
Yeah, so, I think because we therapists, we know the demands and expectations that we have. So our developers have always said, okay, well, if anyone stops using the app, let's just delete their information and carry on. And we're like, no, that is not going to happen. It's a priority that we will always store people's notes. So even if people stop, we've made that a priority. So all our developers know that we have to safeguard those notes. And yeah, I think in the future we might build in a feature that pops up and says, this child is now 21. Do you want to delete their notes?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. But that's a priority, because we know that it's essential. And yeah, just another thing that we learned was that whoever's practice number you use as a therapist is the person that owns the notes. So if you're using a practice number, your boss's practice number, ethically she owns the notes. So she needs to have access to those notes and that information, even if you leave her. But obviously, if you are the treating therapist and that child ever, if any information ever gets called back, it is important that you can still access those notes. So with SpecialT, we've enabled it that you will always be able to access your own child's notes, because you've used your Google or Facebook ID to sign in with. So you'll always have the access to those notes, but then the practice owner also will have access to those notes because it's under her practice number.
So I'm glad you brought up the thing about the access and the Google access and all of that, because like I know that a lot of people, especially when people who are not very familiar with technology, when they hear, oh, you need to log in with your Google, or I used to use BeLive instead of the StreamYard, and you have to log in with your Facebook account, and then it's like some people get really scared because it's like, but are you going to have access to my Google account now, or my Facebook account? I'm actually teaching our teachers, our learners won't really, because a lot of them come from townships and that. So MS Teams and that's not going to work. They don't have Wi-Fi. So what we've opted to do is have a private Facebook group. We turn off all commenting and we just post like videos and stuff in there. But some of our teachers don't even have Facebook accounts, or they do. And like when they heard, oh, now they have to post in there, and it's their Facebook, it's like, people are going to see their Facebook, and I had to teach them how to put the privacy settings off and all of that. So I think these are just genuine concerns people have, because you hear all these things about being hacked and all of this stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit about around the idea of logging in using your Google, or, what do people need to know about it, just to make them feel a bit more secure?
Cool. So what we started with was using Google or Facebook passwords to sign in with. And the reason why we've done that is because the Google and Facebook use really encrypted password technology. So I'm sure if any of you have ever tried to log on to your Gmail with someone else's phone or someone else's computer, you wouldn't be allowed on unless you got the code that it normally sends you, like some numbers on your cell phone, and then you need to then put the number onto the computer. So it's really the password encryption is really, really good on Google and Facebook. Obviously, it has to be. So that's why we've chosen to use Google or Facebook sign up. And then when you sign up, it also, your email address is obviously linked to your user ID, which is your name and your surname. So obviously, it's important for us to see who the name is of the person that's signing up, so that you as a practice owner can then connect the correct name to the correct patient. So that's why we've chosen to go this route in terms of Google and Facebook sign-ins. We can't see, or your practice owner can't see any password information. We can't hack it in any way. It's purely a way for you to enter your account. And by no means can anyone get into your Gmail or get into your password. It's purely just because we've used that because it's encrypted and it's safe for you. Yeah, so that's why. I know there is some confusion. In the future, we might look at adding another option, because there are really some people that are like, no, I'll never sign up because and even though I've told them there's no way we can find out, they're still nervous. So we might look at another way and another option in the future.
I just want to say towards that, like, it's the same thing with why you shouldn't be using even if you're sole prop, you should have a separate bank account for your private practice. If you really are worried, why not just create like a separate Gmail account that you don't use for anything except for like admin related to the app, or it's because when I do websites for clients and we have to install the Google Analytics, I always create a separate Gmail account that is used for everything related to the website only. So anything to do with the analytics and the AdSense or whatever it is they have. And I say to them when I hand over the username and password, and I say, do not use this for personal use. And in any case, it's best practice not to use your personal email for communicating with parents. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you can easily by accident, like forward something or CC somebody in, and it's your personal email account. You in any case should have a separate email for your private practice. So it's just best practice anyway. So I think, and like you say, it is the most, I don't even use Outlook for my emails. I use Gmail as an Outlook. I actually import the whole email through, because they're so good at filtering out all of this, hackers and things like that. So I think let's go into the actual app. I think everybody would be excited to now actually see what the app, if you haven't seen it before, what the app is about. So if you can share with us, I'm going to remove myself from this equation here. Okay, so we've got your screen up there, and you can talk us through the app.
Awesome, great. So I just thought it would be a great idea just to take you through this way. So I just I've made a little presentation for you, and just wanted to introduce you also to Jess, who's not with us this evening. So we both started SpecialT together. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got the 3 pillars of SpecialT: record your notes, communicate with parents, and access to resources and home exercises. There are a lot more pillars that we are hoping to add before the end of the year. But for now, those are the 3 pillars that we are very passionate about. So if you didn't know that SpecialT is a mobi app, it can therefore be used on any desktop device. So any computer, if you have an old computer or a new computer, you can use it on that, and then any mobile device as well. So iPhone, Android, Huawei, any device that you have, it can be used on. So as I said, you log on via Google or Facebook. You enter the email that you want to use and your password. And as you do that, you will then come to this page that says, are you a practice owner? Do you want to register your own practice? Obviously, you as a practice owner would click on this orange button over here to register your practice. If it was a parent, they would search for your practice in the search bar. And then so here is where you would add in your email address and your password. You then enter we'll get to the terms and conditions, and that protects you as a practice owner and us as a SpecialT. You agree to the privacy policy as well. You then click on that you're joining as an owner. And then this is just the onboarding process, just to give you some support in how you onboard and how you create patient profiles. You then click on Let's Get Started. And what you'll do then is you'll register your profession. So at the moment, we've got OT-PEDS and we've got speech therapy. In a few weeks' time, we're going to be launching general occupational therapy. So if you're an OT in hands or physical or psych, we've got a really awesome panel of ladies that are busy developing some video content for you. You enter all your practice information and click Save. And then you can get started. So we've got a help page where you can view some videos on how to get started. Often people would prefer a phone call, so we often phone people the next day or that day and give them support in the sign-up process. On your settings page, you'll then be able to add a logo and a background image for your practice, so that when parents arrive on your page, they'll see a description of your practice, they'll see a logo and just information about you and your practice. There will be a button on this page that says Join Reach Occupational Therapy, and the parents will then click on the Join button to enter your practice. Then on the users page, that is where you will verify people coming into your practice. So people might join your practice, but it's your job as a practice owner to verify them. So I would obviously have verified myself as a therapist, and when parents come in, we would then verify them as a user. Any parent or guardian coming into the practice would then be connected as a user. Then you're going to click on the patient page. This is where you'll add a patient name. You can do that manually, or you can do a bulk import. You can see here I've got a child's name called James Sturton, and this is where the list of all the children in the practice, their name will appear on this list. You click on the patient's name, and you can then add the specific user and guardian and therapist to that patient profile. So if there are more than one therapist in the practice, you would then connect the correct patient to the correct therapist. Obviously, a user is either a patient if it's an adult, or a user is the parent. Sorry, my brother was trying to phone me there. And then what you would do is you would connect the parent to the child's profile. You also connect the guardian, which can be the second parent, or it can also be the au pair, the teacher, the speech therapist. You can add as many guardians as you want to the child's profile, and you add yourself as a therapist. You can see there that you will then have a list of all the patients that are in your practice. This is all on the owner page. So if you see here at the bottom, this is the owner page. And this is where you'll do your settings, you'll verify the users, and you'll add patient profiles. And then what you'll do is you'll click on the home page, and you will see the patient's names for your practice. You'll click on the patient's name. You'll be able to edit the patient's profile, and then you can add an assessment. You put in the date of assessment here. So if the assessment was done a year ago, you just find the correct date and enter the date. You will then be able to enter internal notes. So this is something that we were quite passionate about when we started SpecialT, because we didn't want all the notes to be visible to the parents or the guardians, because there are always some notes that you need to keep for yourself and some notes for the parent. So you can see here how you can switch between internal and public. Internal notes are only for your access or your practice owner's access, and public are obviously for all the guardians. You will then enter the public notes, and then what you can do is you can upload any documents that you want to the patient's assessment. So this is where you could scan information from your assessment packs, or you can upload reports. You then are able to click the therapy areas that are the problem list. So if the child struggles with form constancy, spatial relations, instead of having to write all these therapy areas, you just tick that these are the problem areas for the child. And then you click send. Then you'll be able to go back to the patient page, and you can see here there's a dark gray card, and this dark gray card shows the assessment. It has an A on it for assessment. If you click on the open button, you can then view the date of assessment, the chronological age for the child, the parent notes, and the internal notes. You can view.
Can I just say that, sorry, that working out the chronological age from date of birth is like my worst nightmare. I hate doing that because I can never calculate it correctly. I have to take my calculator out and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the feeling, and that's why we've built it into the app. So when you edit the patient profile, you'll put in the date of birth and the date of assessment, and it works out the chronological age for you. So
that's amazing.
So that's exactly why you need to use SpecialT. You can see here that you can add an internal comment. So if there's something that you forgot about the assessment or something that's incorrect, you can add an additional comment, and it will date and time that comment that you entered. You can see the therapy areas that the child is struggling with, and you can see if there are any documents attached to the child's profile. Then once you've closed the assessment, you can now see there's a little plus button on the bottom right. If you click on that plus button, it then takes you to a new session. So you can see here that this is a session now. And with a session, you would add the date and the time. You can either choose the time or you can backspace and write the specific time. You can enter your internal notes. So you can see that it's the same format where you have internal notes or public notes. And then you would obviously write all the areas that the child is struggling with. You can then also upload images. So in the session or after the session, you can either upload an image from your library or you can take a photo. This is really nice because what I actually do in most of my sessions is I won't write notes and it gives me more time with the child. But what I will do is I'll open the public notes and I will just take 2 or 3 pictures of the child in therapy. And then in the afternoon or in the evening or in my bed or wherever I am waiting in my car at school for my kids, I can then finish off my notes wherever I am. I've got the visual picture of what I did in therapy, so it really helps me remember exactly how the child responded and what activities I did. And yeah, it's just really, really nice because it's so accessible. You can then enter your public notes and then you go to next therapy areas. And now you would click on the therapy areas that the child that you did in the session. Obviously with COVID, you would click on the therapy areas that you want the parents to work on at home. And because it's categorized to OT, if you click on ball skills, you'll see now how it brings up all the ball skill activities that we have on the app. So depending on whichever area you have worked on in the session would mean which video options come up for the parent to do at home. So then when you click on next exercises, you can see all the exercises related to the therapy areas that you selected. There is a search bar. So if you know the name of the therapy area, you just type it in the search bar. Otherwise, you can just scroll down and choose the various exercises that you would like. You can see that we've got a variety of videos. We've tried to make it really practical for parents. So we've tried not to use too many therapy tools and equipment so that the parents can easily grab a pillow off the bed or find a tree in the garden and use those opportunities for learning. Once you select your videos that you want the child to do for homework, you then click on the send button. And yeah, if you aren't ready to send your notes, you can save them. And you can see that my session is now in draft format. It's dated and timed, and it's in draft format, which means that the parents won't receive those yet. You can then delete those notes, or you can edit them again, and then send when you're ready. Once you have clicked send, there'll be an open button on the right here. You can see that there's a single tick, which means the parents haven't read the notes. If the parents have read the notes, there'll be a double tick. If the parents have sent you a comment, there'll be a little comment bar, a button up here that will say 1, 2, or 3, depending on how many comments the parents have sent you. And then if you open up your notes again, you'll see the date that the session was sent. You'll see the date that the session was done. So I really like this because it makes all therapists accountable. If all of a sudden you're being audited and you haven't written any notes, people can actually see that you've just done your notes now, rather than doing them at the correct time. So it makes us accountable as therapists as well, which I think is important. You can see how you can see the internal notes. You can add additional comments. You can also add additional images. So say you've walked into the child's classroom and you can see something that they're doing in class. You can take a quick picture and then it gets saved to that date and that time. And that's really nice because in the past I used to take photos on my phone, and then I'd get home and I wouldn't remember whose picture this or handwriting this was, because there was no name on the top of the page. And then that piece of paper and that picture was then irrelevant for me because now I can't remember whose handwriting that was. So this is really nice using SpecialT because you can then just take a quick picture on your phone. It gets saved to this date and this session, and then you've got proof of the child's handwriting or posture. You can see the homework exercises. You can see the therapy areas that you worked on. And then you can see there how the parent can send you a message and you can send the parent a message, and then there's back and forth communication on this platform with you and the parent. If you close that and you go to resources, you can then view all the therapy areas within the app. And if you click on one of the areas, you can then see how the parent can also read this definition. The parent only has access to the videos that you've recommended, but you as a therapist can then click on bilateral coordination and view all the videos that we have created on the app. You can then click on the video and watch the video and see which therapy areas each video is related to, and then you can share those videos within each session.
Okay, it looks fantastic. So, Tal, you mentioned that there's quite a few things that you're hoping to add by the end of the year. Do you want to share what are some of the things you've got cooking up your sleeve at the moment? So we've got quite a few things up our sleeves. If anyone does use SpecialT, they will know that we've recently sent out a survey to find out where our pain points are as therapists. How do therapists feel about record keeping? How do they feel about invoicing, payment solutions? So there are quite a few things that we're really excited about. One of the things that we're going to be launching now in hopefully end of July is that therapists can add their own videos. So up until now, therapists have only been able to add videos from the video library. But a lot of therapists have said instead of just taking an image on within the child's profile, can they take a video? That's been a constant request from a lot of therapists where they've been in a session and the video they want to send the parent something really specific, or the parent also wants to send them something specific back. So then what happens is the parent will often then use WhatsApp and send the video via WhatsApp to the therapist, which is not encouraged. WhatsApp is a social platform. So everything that we say and do on there is being monitored and tracked. So they might never use the evidence specifically, but I'm sure if any of you have tried, you've maybe written about AstroTurf and then next minute you go on Facebook and there's an ad for AstroTurf. So, absolutely,
everything that we do on there is tracked and monitored. So it's really important to keep that information safe and secure. Another thing is also the POPI Act, which says that we really need to protect information specifically around children. We need to safeguard that information, not have pictures of children on our phone. So with SpecialT, when you take a picture on the device, the image gets saved directly to that date and that session. It doesn't get saved to your phone. So that also protects you as a therapist and ensures that you are complying with all the laws and expectations. So I think from that side of things, we've realized that a lot of therapists are still using WhatsApp for videos, and parents are also using WhatsApp for videos. So we've realized that we need to fast track that feature, where therapists can now send back and forth videos about their child. They can upload a long video, obviously from their desktop if they've maybe done a telehealth session, or they can just take a quick 2-minute video within, on their cell phone within the session. We're really excited. Our dev team are busy working on that at the moment, and we really feel that that's going to add a lot of value. And then, report writing, goals, invoicing are all features that I'm desperate. I'm as I told you, I like to tick the boxes. So I want them up yesterday. But obviously it takes a lot of time and money to get them up. So we really listen to our customers. So once we have a bit of a plan in mind, we're probably going to approach some of our customers and ask them what they want to see up first, and just get their feedback, because I think, we all need things to help us in our practice, and that's really what we're so passionate about.
Yeah, no, it sounds all really exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of these things unfold and to see other professions come on board. I know the speech therapists have been asking for ages, like, aren't there any apps? And so I'm sure a lot of them will be so glad to hear that they now can finally also access SpecialT. So thank you so much for your time. I thought it was fantastic. And I'm glad to have finally met you virtually, because we've just been kind of communicating via email so far. So,
Thank you. Well done. I think, I started my practice 10 years ago, and at that stage, there was no platform or no support, and a lot of therapists wanted to keep their information just to themselves and didn't help each other. And I think I'm really passionate about supporting new therapists, and we've seen that there's a need for that. Even with SpecialT, we often personal questions on how you do this or how you do your billing and how you how you communicate with parents. And I think all of that is so important. And I think it's amazing what you're doing in supporting new therapists. So I just want to say a really big well done to you. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.